Good evening and welcome to the Housing, Health and Community Committee. If you haven't already done so, please feel free to take your jackets off and ties. It is a warm evening. Could I ask everyone to note the fire safety instructions that are on hearing the fire alarm? You should leave the chamber via the double doors at the back, exit the building through the main entrance and congregate in the car park. Also, please switch off your mobile phones and turn off any electronic devices being used to silent. I'd like to remind everyone present the meeting is subject to an internet webcast recording where the proceedings are capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated in the public area of the council chamber, it's likely your image will be captured by the recording cameras and as a result, your image becoming part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should leave the public area of the council chamber and move to the upper public gallery. If members are for any reason not present for the whole of the debate of an item, you should consider and seek advice as necessary on whether it would be appropriate for you to vote on that item. May I remind members to declare any interest when the item is raised on the agenda. So item number 1 is apologies for absence. Mrs. Borman, have we received any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Davies, Councillor Haigh and Councillor Reid. Councillor Mayo, Councillor Rigby and Councillor Barber are substituting. Thank you.
Okay, due to the absence of Councillor Davies, we welcome Councillor Mayo as the Vice Chair for the duration of this meeting. Is that agreed? Agreed. Okay, item 2, declaration of interest. Are there any declarations to be made? Councillor Mayo.
Yes, item 8 concerns the, what's the title of it? Just look. The Culture and Creative Strategy for 2025 to 2030. My wife is a member of the Brentwood Creative Community. I've taken advice from the monitoring officer. I'm not compromised, and therefore I'm okay to do that, but I just wanted to declare that so everyone's aware of that.
Thank you, Councillor Mayo. Item 3 is meetings of the previous meeting held on the 10th of April 2025 on page 5 of your agenda. It was a pink item, so it's relatively short minutes. Yeah, thank you very much. Right, item 4 is the Chair's report. This has been published with the agenda starting on page 7. I'm happy to take any questions on the updated report. Councillor Kendall.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a couple of questions. On the Homes for Ukraine, in the second paragraph, it talks about the 18-month extension. And I just wondered if we could be told either tonight or maybe after the meeting when the extension started and when the extension finishes, because it does say no payments will be funded by the government after the 18 months, so it'd be good to know when it actually officially comes to an end. That's the first point. The second point is on the UK SPF, we had some presentations from 3 of the recipients of the UK SPF fund at the F&R meeting, and I think you were there yourself, Chair, and we saw obviously what a difference it had made to a lot of groups in the borough. So that was very good news. Lastly, Chair, just an update on the Brentwood Locality Fund. I believe some information went out tonight. If you could just clarify that, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kendall. On the Locality Fund, there should be an email in every member's inbox now explaining the criteria for the Locality Funds. I look forward to everyone getting involved and working with community groups and coming up with a submission that meets that criteria. But as I said, all the information is in there, and feel free to share that information with community groups that you feel might be beneficial in that. Obviously, it does say the procedure for applying for that in that. On the Homes for Ukraine scheme, does an officer want to? Yep, Skill.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Councillor Kendall. I believe it depends on when the person on the Homes for Ukraine programme came over. So essentially the initial Homes for Ukraine visa only lasted, I think it was a year, maybe 2, and then after that, that's when the extension will happen for 18 months, and then I think at the end of that, there's no further extension at all, as far as I'm aware at this moment.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Sankey.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points on 1.6, page 9, the Brentford Arts Festival. The Ingatestone Art Trail was on the 14th of June. It was a rather damp day, unbelievably, but well attended and very, very successful, I have to say. Just one point on the Night of the Opera concert. Combined voices of Hutton and Shenfield Choral Society, Brentford Choral Society, actually now the Brentford Ingatestone Choral Society. So I do have flyers. It's going to be a great evening. I will be attending. I will be participating, actually, as will former councillor Thomas Bridge. So I do recommend that. And finally, on page 11, Family Fun Days, we have the Ingatestone Summer Show on Saturday the 19th of July. It's always a worthwhile event. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sankey. Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a regular member of your committee, but I'm delighted to attend tonight. 3 points. One, in relation to 1.2, heritage lecterns. As somebody who values our history and wishes to see it promoted throughout the town as well as the borough, I'm delighted that these are being replaced and indeed updated, and that the sheets will be sent to schools and community organisations. Can I ask that information about those be sent to schools in the wider borough as well as urban Brentwood, because I think it's very important, certainly from the residents in my ward, that they're aware of the history, and I know that the local kids in the schools there will very much welcome that, so that's the first point. Second point is just to say that I'm delighted that the Adagio School of Dance, which is based in my ward, will be participating in the Night at the Opera alongside Brentwood and Ingatestone's finest, because no event is complete without Hutton taking part, and so I think that will be a truly musical spectacular. And then last but no means least is just to say, in relation to CSP, which was item 4 to 4.1 onwards, both Mr Brace and myself were present in the chamber today for a CSP meeting with all our community safety partners. It went well, and I'm pleased to say that the CSP is up and running. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby. Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of things, if I may. On Family Fun Days on 2.5, it's good to see Hutton Recreation Grounds in there again. Councillor Patel and Pound and myself always like to attend that event. It's very, very popular with local residents and particularly popular with the children. And thank you to all the council officers for delivering those Family Fun Days. They have great value. On the Community Connect vehicle, I just might flag to you under the one scheduled for being outside Shenfield Library. You may need to look at the exact positioning of where the vehicle can be now. We've had the big investment by Essex County Council in delivering the new library for Shenfield, because I know that obviously the grass isn't available now, and there are somewhat more limitations on getting a large vehicle on site. So just flag that in case, and maybe Kim's got already thought that through and has some proper answer for that. Yes. I can see she's all over it. Fantastic. And finally, just a real question on the community safety recruitment that's been underway. We see that the start date is to be confirmed. I'm not sure if there is a start date known now since the report's been published. But can we, once that position is completely filled and that person is with us, can we send out a new organisational chart, please, for the community safety team, so that all councillors know who to go to by name if they require support and assistance, because obviously people do have antisocial behaviour and they will want to go direct, if at all possible, to be efficient in escalating items. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. On the community safety team organisation chart, I guess we can get a nod from the officers if that's possible. Yeah, they are nodding, so hopefully we'll do that. And actually, I realised I forgot to refer a question from Councillor Rigby, which was on the schools in the lanterns. I'm assuming that does go out to schools that are not just in urban Brentwood, but across the borough. Is that correct?
That would be
Yes.
correct. Just to mention about Shenfield Library, there is a lay-by still in existence outside the library, so the vehicle's parked there.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Pound.
This one on the Strawberry Fair. I thought it was a huge success. I think that the King George's playing fields, it works so well there, and it was just very well attended, and the mayor in his open carriage was amazing. So well done.
Thank you, Councillor Pound. Yeah, it was an absolutely fantastic success, as you can see by the 10,000 people that went. Absolutely fantastic way to celebrate V-Day. Yeah, and well done for all the officers involved. Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair. So just obviously following through from Councillor Kendall, that was one of the questions I was going to ask with the Brentwood Locality Fund. Does this relate to the email we received this evening? But thank you. And then just actually to say that I'm very pleased that we're continuing with the drive with the slipper swap, because I feel that not only does this provide advice, it actually provides support, which does actually encourage independent living and reduces falls and injuries for the frail and elderly. So I really am delighted that we're continuing with that initiative.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. Unfortunately, the fan is making some background noise, but we'll see if we can move it. I don't have any further... Okay, I don't think I've got any further speakers on the Chair's report, so we'll move on to item 5, which is the committee work plan. The report sets out our work plan for the committee for the municipal year 2025 to 26. Ms. Stretch, do you have anything to add to the report?
Nothing specific to add, but happy to take any questions.
No questions? Okay, that's great. We do have a recommendation, which is the committee notes its current work programme as set out in Appendix A. I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, happy to second that.
Okay, and we'll go to a vote. All those in favour? Okay, yeah, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going through the agenda pretty quickly. Must be hot in here. Item 6, CCTV fees and charges, which starts on page 3 of the supplementary agenda. That some of you collected. The CCTV service requires regular requests from companies, receives regular requests from companies requiring information from CCTV footage. These are generally for insurance claims or from insurance companies or solicitors. Local authorities usually make a charge for this service to cover the cost of providing this footage. The report sets out the proposed charging and rationale for the charges for approval. Mr. Brace, do you have anything to add to the report?
No, nothing to add, but more than happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Kendall?
Thank you, Chair. Have you moved the recommendation, Chair, or are you going to?
I will do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to say, I support the recommendation. I think those members, many members will remember, we spoke about CCTV, the investment we're going to have in CCTV in terms of staffing side of things. That's coming through, and the money has been allocated for that, and I think that is very important. I'm sure there will come a stage, Chair, hasn't happened yet, but when you're and Mr. Brace will be looking at the cameras in terms of what cameras we've got, what quality they are, etc. So I'm sure that's coming down the line as well. So this would be a very small way of bringing some revenue back in. But looking at what they do in other councils, we've got some details in the report towards the back of the report. I see what they do in Chelmsford and Epping. We're certainly in tune with, or we will be in tune if we go with this tonight, in tune with what they do. I see we're a lot cheaper than Southend. So I think it is something we should move forward on, Chair, and it has my support. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Yes, obviously there is the comparison table there, and we're definitely not at the top of it. So I think we can review as the next fees and charges comes up at the next budgeting round, whether we keep it at its current. It is supposed to be cost recovery, I think, rather than income generating. Okay, if I don't have any further speakers, I'll move the recommendation. The recommendation is that the committee approves the proposed fees and charges as set out in the report for the CCTV subject access requests from insurance groups and solicitors, including individuals regarding civil claims, to come to an immediate force as set out in the report. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, I'm happy to second that.
Okay, all those in favour? Okay, that again is unanimous. Thank you very much. So we move on to item 7, which is the Brentwood Community Fund, especially the approval of the additional awards, which is set out in page 25. Allocation of the Brentwood Community Fund grants have been agreed through delegated authority to the Chair of Housing, Health and Community Committee in consultation with the Strategic Director. Members are being asked to consider funding an additional 4 grants from the Council's 2024-25 general budget underspend, subject to finalised outturn at the Finance and Resources Committee on the 25th of June, which has already happened, so we can assume that is positive. Ms Gill, do you have anything to add to the report?
Thank you, Chair. Nothing specific to add. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Barber.
Thank you. I mean, obviously, the list of items on pages 25 and 26 are very good items to be supported. But can I just ask why the funding for those items either was not delivered out of the original funding pot, or if the number of requests simply exceeded the funding pot that was available, why, given where we are in the calendar, is this not coming from the 25-26 budget? Because the thing that slightly irks me about this item is we're spending money from a general budget underspend, not having any knowledge of what the underspend was for elsewhere that originated that underspend. So do we, for example, so some underspend, for example, will be stuff which you will still incur in future years. Some underspend will be things which are no longer progressed, and some underspend might be because you didn't have a position filled for a period of time. How do we, when we're deciding whether to spend that additional money or not, know where that original source of money came from?
Thank you, Councillor. So we call it an underspend, but in reality, this is in fact not an underspend. It's just that we gained more from our assets than we believe we would do. So I think that was explained at F&R, effectively through the asset sale and capital management. The council earned more money than it thought it was. So it's called an underspend, but it actually, the income was greater than originally thought. But I'll move to Ms Gill to explain about the other question you had, which calendar year. The question about the funding. I believe there was only £50,000 in the pot, but I'll ask Ms Gill.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, that's correct. We had an original pot of 50,000, which is funded through community and social investment programmes through Axis and Sale, and also a £10,000 contribution from the Brentwood Health and Wellbeing Board. So on the appendix, the 10 grants, I believe it was, have already been agreed through delegated authority, and we don't normally award anyone who scores underneath 60%. So where the 4 are put forward, they are ones who did score 60% and above, but didn't quite make it to the pot because the pot was depleted by that point. I hope that answers the question.
If I may. Sorry. So why could this additional spend not come from the 25-26 50,000 allocation?
Sorry, Councillor, if you go on to the appendix, it shows actually how the £50,000 was already spent on other grants. Yes, from the £50,000. It doesn't come from the budget. £50,000 comes from Axis and Sale, who give the money for the community fund. So the community fund isn't supported from the general fund, it's supported from Axis and Sale, who give a donation, sort of.
You're saying that Appendix A is 25-26 already? Right, fine. Okay, that is because it doesn't say 24-25 or 25-26. That's where the confusion was arising. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Councillor Slade.
Great. So my original question was just to confirm if Appendix A has been
already previously approved under delegated authority. So obviously then following through, I'm going to ask for obviously this additional 16,223 and 16 pence is in addition to the 50,000. But can I just ask the criteria, because I'm just really concerned that defibrillators wouldn't score high enough to be on Appendix A, and that concerns me greatly. So could you just explain the criteria for that, please?
Thank you, Councillor Slade. I mean, I think the additional 4 all scored the right amount to be included, but it's just how highly they scored. But if we pass on Ms. Gill, she can explain that one.
Thank you. Yes, grants are scored on a set of clear, transparent scoring criteria, including commitment to environment, commitment to equality, diversity and inclusion, and lots of the wider commitment to the corporate priorities as well. So when it comes down to scoring, it's a very robust scoring method, and there was, it did score highly enough to be awarded funding, but it didn't score highly enough in terms of ranking to be able to be awarded the money before the pot was depleted. I really appreciate how honest that answer is, but this may be for another time, but I get, but we're talking about defibrillators that are going to make a difference to someone's life, and how that doesn't fit that criteria. So whether the criteria needs to be adjusted, obviously, going forward. But like I say, if we didn't have this money, we're saying that we will be allocating defibrillators, and that really does cause me great concern.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. Obviously, we can share the criteria out, and obviously we can re-look at it in the future. We fund different things from different pots, and this is the criteria that was set out for this fund when it was created. I don't think it's actually changed since it created some time ago, but we can look at it another time in the future. Councillor Kendall.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just really in answer to sort of Councillor Barber's comment, I think on page 27, it talks about financial implications, and it says the general budget underspend. I prefer to call it the general budget surplus. I think that's a better way of looking at it. The way I look at this, to me, this is a one-off. This doesn't set a precedent. It should be looked at as a one-off. We're in a position, okay, where we can do this on this occasion, and this does tie in, as it says earlier in the report, to the Council's long-term strategic objectives for communities and health. And I think if we're able to do it, the danger is we'd have to roll it over, be another year of delay and everything else. And I think this will make a difference. And it goes back to the point I made before about the UK SPF funding. When we listened to FNR about the difference that funding made, and I'm sure it's the same with these groups here, it does make a massive difference to them. And I think if we're in a position to do something, I think we should do. So I give it a support. But I fully understand members raising the points and questioning the process, because it does need to be transparent and open and very clear. But the same with the UK SPF. What happens on that is the officers have a criteria they go through, and then I'm asked as chair, the same as Councillor Barrett is, along with the director, to either approve or not approve. And I think what is good about that is there isn't direct member involvement in deciding who has what. If we go down that route, I think it starts to get very difficult, because people can say it's favouritism and everything else. So we have this set criteria. But I think it would be useful, Chair, I don't know if it's possible, if we had some idea as to all the different organisations who actually applied for funding. We don't need the reasons why they didn't get it, but it'd be just good to know. So if, say, 12 organisations have got money, you know, but 25 applied overall, 13 didn't, I think it'd be quite useful if we had that. And the other question that often comes up, Chair, and I'm sure Ms Anderson can give us an answer, is just about advice for different groups, because some groups and organisations seem to be very good at bidding for money, and other groups perhaps haven't got the expertise or the knowledge, and I think some of them really do need some help to bring them up to that level. It's not that they're not a needy or a worthy cause, it's just they haven't got the time, the wherewithal or the knowledge to put it together. And I think, I'm sure officers don't, but we have to be careful we don't take for granted that everyone knows what they're doing with these applications, because they don't. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kendall. Kim, did you have a response?
Just to say, yeah, happy to share the applications that we've received. The other thing I would say, if organisations, and then maybe new organisations are struggling with funding, then we've got CVS, so they have funding workshops. So again, I would direct them to CVS to help. Again, we can provide some general advice. We're not going to provide advice on the particular applications because obviously we've got to score them at the end. But we do have a panel of 3 officers that will score, and then we'll have a moderating meeting as well if scores are way out. So I think we've got a robust process in place for scoring applications. But there is other support out there, and we will direct organisations to that if they're struggling.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sankey?
Thank you, Chair. Now, as I understand it, I think the surplus was due in part to astute financial management by our Section 151 on the excess funds that we received from the asset. So well done to him. Secondly, if I look at option 1, page 27, first paragraph, not approving the additional grants will mean less support for Brenton's voluntary and community sector, impact on wider health outcomes for residents and achieving the Council's long-term strategic objectives. So on that basis, I support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barber? Sorry, Councillor Baldock.
Yeah, just I've got an event coming this weekend that I'll be there Friday and Saturday in Herongate, and I'm sure people will be there from Herongate Football Club. And when this comes up, now I realise there's a strict criteria and whatnot, but is there a what do you call it, like a one paragraph answer I can give to why Old Brentwood's washrooms scored higher than defibrillators, which is relatively the same amount of same amount of money? Is you can imagine they say, well, and by the way, I'm in favour of this. I'm fully intent on voting on it. Voting in favour. It's just I may get asked questions, and it'd be easy to go, well, because of X, Y, Z, or is it just not that simple?
One of the officers, Ms. Gill.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's not that simple. I think it's that each project is equally as valuable for funding, as worth funding as other projects are, and I think that's personal choice as to what's seen as more valuable than other projects, but essentially it's how they've answered the questions in the application. So if that content isn't there, then they will be scored down, and we're very clear. They get given a scoring matrix, they know how we score the questions, they know what we're looking for. The process has been refined over many years, and we've made it as simple as possible, and we ask for feedback every year as to how we can make it simple, and we don't overlook the fact that we know that some larger charities, for example, have got that resource to be able to apply for, say, better bid funding applications. And on top of that, we've had a discussion around AI, and we know that some organisations use AI for the benefit of applying, and we're very happy with that because we realise that bid writing isn't everybody's greatest skill, so we're happy to welcome that as well. So it simply is just down to how they've answered each question and whether or not we've felt like they have answered the question fully and in detail, essentially.
Thank you. Councillor Barber?
Thank you, Chair. I do think that it would be good to revisit at some stage with officers and yourself the process to understand it more fully and look at some of the anomalies that sometimes creep into the system. I'm not criticising any of the entries that either have been approved by delegated authority or the 4 that come to us tonight. But what I would say is that if we focus exclusively always on DEI, then things like the Brentwood Community Transport, where we froze the amount of money we gave them and didn't increase it by inflation in the last 12 months, will suffer. I think if the most, in terms of inclusion, being able to go to hospital safely from your home is quite important. It probably wouldn't meet the scoring system that you have for this, but given this is not money intended for a specific purpose other than community purpose, I do think we need to look at the anomaly of perhaps some of those things which may be very, very worthy not meeting the point system. And also, I also think that there is always a risk that in non-parished areas that there is a lack of organised bids for funding, whether it's from UK SPF or whether it's from this. Parishes are very, very good at putting forward those kind of requests. Organised groups are, and often in the most poor areas, the most socially deprived areas, those groups aren't always there to submit those requests. And I just think we need to perhaps look at that to just see if we can tweak and improve it. So thank you for what you've done bringing this to tonight, and I'm going to vote for it, of course. But if we can look at it to make sure we're not forgetting anyone along the way in future years, I would very much appreciate the ability to engage with officers and yourself, Chair, on that to see if we can improve it in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. Obviously, we are only seeing a small paragraph of their applications here, and it's difficult to compare them. So I just want to say that I think that the scoring system is robust, but we can always review and scrutinise as we needed to. Councillor Kendall.
Yeah, sorry, it's only a small point, as Councillor Barber raised it. Just check with Kim about Brentford Community Transport. My understanding was we did give them more money than they originally asked for this year. We did do that at F&R. Sorry? No, F&R we gave them because we discussed Brentford Community Transport, their grant. We also, I believe, are going to go in much more detail with Brentford Community Transport in terms of what we get or don't get as a service for our money that we're investing. Because I think you mentioned it the other night, Councillor Barber, with regards to the economic development strategy. We need to look at what support we can get from things like Brentford Community Transport to help with transport, linking in with our economic development strategy in terms of people getting around. Because what we're not going to get, we need to be very clear about this, is it from the commercial bus services, because the commercial bus operators are not providing any new routes. If anything, they're cutting back on routes. And the only chance we've got is probably something like Brentford Community Transport to try and turn things around. So I just wanted to make that point, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'll move on to the recommendation because we're going slightly off topic now. So I'll move to the recommendation of option 2, which is to approve the allocation of the £16,223.16 from the Council's underspend to support the 4 listed grant applications. I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, very happy to second.
Okay, all those in favour? Okay, again unanimous. Thank you very much. So we move to item 8, a Place for Culture, a 5-year creative and cultural strategy for the Borough of Brentwood, starting on page 31. A Place for Culture is a 5-year strategy to support the development of culture and creativity in Brentwood. The strategy has been co-created and written by local creatives who have put forward 3 strategic priorities for members' consideration. Ms Gill, do you have anything to add to the report?
Thank you, Chair. No, nothing to add, but happy to take any questions.
Councillor Barber.
Could I just ask, when a report comes to committee, is it possible to find out who the authors were? Because being told it's local creatives isn't really meaningful, and it would be quite nice to know who they are and what their background is, please.
I think Ms Gill might have an idea of their background, but some people might not want to be named, or we haven't asked permission. But Ms Gill.
Yes, I think it says in there that it was commissioned. We commissioned the No Collective, who are a local arts collective with some. That's okay. We commissioned the No Collective. I think it says in the report, who are a local arts collective with experience of writing and research around culture and creativity.
Councillor Kendall. Sorry, did that answer your question, Councillor Barber? Thank you. Councillor Kendall.
Thank you, Chair. Fully support recommendations. I'm delighted to see this report. I think it's a very, very important report that's before us tonight. And I think the fact it's 25 to 2030 is good, because if you look into the detail and you read through all the detail here, they've obviously done an awful lot of research, and I think it says surveyed 150 venues and organisations across the borough and more than 40 direct interviews. And yeah, they've got into it with some depth. As a big fan of live music, I've gone to see a lot of live music. I would like to see more live music in Brentwood. I know there are places that do live music, but I'd like to see more. And it's interesting, different venues around Essex, places like Witton Public Hall, Hatfield Peveril, Village Hall. They have regular gigs on there of a certain size. And I just wish perhaps some of the parish councils, I mean, I live in a parish area, it'd be nice if some of the parish councils did a bit more of that type of thing, because I think it might help on a revenue side of things. The Brentwood Centre is certainly coming up with more events, but that isn't always everyone's cup of tea in terms of the size of the venue. Sometimes people like some smaller venues. But I think the report is very, very useful. Slight concerns I have are just with regard to future funding. We touched on this at the Finance and Resources meeting. We had this money from the government on the UKSPF, £1 million for Brentwood, which was very much welcomed. It's the previous government. And then obviously the current government's put about 324,000 in. I have to say I'm concerned as to what funding we might get from government in future on UKSPF, because the way it's going, I think it's looking a little bit doubtful. So I think on page 35, it talks about officers considering how the council might fund and resource other elements of the strategy moving past 2026. That is key, you know, state the obvious, but we really do need to look out for any sources of funding. I'm delighted, Chair, with the fact that we've got locality funding that you're promoting tonight. I mean, that's obviously a start, that will help, but there is going to be a gap in funding. And this £1 million, as I say, we discussed at the F&R meeting just what difference that's made. We did do well out of that fund. To get £1 million for Brentwood, I think was a very, very good result, to be honest. So I think you just need to spread that message to different groups that we have had over the last couple of years some good funding, but that isn't going to carry on to that degree going forward. But fully support this, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kendall. I mean, I think what this enables is it's a strategy that the creatives of the town can go away with and apply for other funding. I think the officers are going to be supporting that. Lots of groups do need a strategy to apply for certain funds, and this funding has enabled that strategy to be developed. Councillor Baldock.
I was only on the subject of live music and wards. Shameless plug, there'll be live music on Friday and Saturday at the Herongate and Ingrave Cricket Club, and it's a free event and you're all more than welcome.
Free?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Baldock. I'm sure Councillor Kendall will head that way. Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair. Just have 3 points, please. So on page 34, first point regarding connecting the borough, it says that to implement travelling craft and visual arts club. Obviously, I can see the funding available for this. Has a timetable been created, obviously, for the dates for the travelling, or the dates and locations for the travelling arts club? Also, staying with page 34, at the bottom we've got microgrants of £10,000. I can see microgrants referenced on page 12 of the actual appendix, where we state that this hyper-localised movement can be initiated by support to local communities to lead their own festivals through providing in-kind resources and venues or microgrants. So would the application for that microgrant be a separate criteria to the initial application where 10,000 was awarded? And then my last point relates to page 4 on regarding the environment, where we're actually talking about our country parks, where we state that geographical environment is particularly pertinent for Brentwood. All consulted stakeholders identified parks and green spaces Brentwood as a primary gem of the borough. As a result, this is a hyper-local opportunity for Brentwood and has driven further recommendations relating to maximising green spaces as cultural assets. Will this link into clean and green, just to make sure that we do develop on that commitment that we're saying on page 4.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. I'm going to pass on almost all your questions to Ms Gill. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll do my best to answer some of these. So the three projects that are to be funded from the UKSPF budget here are yet to be commissioned. So as soon as this committee is done, those will be commissioned, those opportunities will be put out, and we'll try and get cracking with those as soon as possible in terms of the travelling craft and visual arts club in the borough. There's quite a lot of people doing some of that activity already, so it's about finding the right people and possibly maybe building on that. We'll see how that one goes. In terms of the micro grants, that will be commissioned out, but we would expect to see the criteria for that before that was put forward. But essentially they are to boost collaboration between creatives, to essentially support joint projects, joint funding bids that could strengthen the landscape that we have. And lastly, the environment, we've got a few recommendations came forward in terms of green heritage walks, looking at the heritage and utilising our green spaces, as well as bringing back things like outdoor cinema in parks, but also maximising our green assets as film locations, and some of our buildings well are working with the Essex Film Office. So there are a few recommendations that came out of that you won't see on here, because they'll be part of the further action plan that we'll need to put together. But we'll certainly be working with the other services, green spaces, as well as the bid in terms of businesses, and also planning policy to look at our built environment as well. So there'll be other services we'll work with closely just to make sure that everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet, essentially. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rigby.
Thank you. I'd like to dispel the notion that Hutton is somehow some kind of cultural desert, which some who read the report might have felt from reading at least one of the paragraphs there. It's not. There are many great cultural things that happen in Hutton, but they are also very much community-based, which is why I welcome this proposal and I'll be voting for it. In wider Hutton, obviously, within the Daily Bread, they have a very successful cultural scene which is enjoyed by those of an autumnal disposition in their years, as well as many others, which is very popular and indeed thriving and growing. But similarly, you will find at the Hutton Community Centre any number of groups from the over 50s to others who will celebrate various forms of dance or arts or wider cultural knowledge, and that is also a great example of how communities come together and are successful. Within Hutton schools, ranging from Woodlands, which is in Hutton North, Councillor Barber's constituency, to St Martin's, which is in mine, a wide range of children take part in activities, including beginning their musical journey as artists. And in fact, St Martin's generated its own Hollywood star in Stephen Moyer, who went on to have a career in Hollywood, starring in various movies, having learnt his trade on the boards of St Martin's School. And I'm pleased to say that I acted with him in a production once. So there is plenty of opportunity in Hutton for people to take part in things. I think we would welcome that very much. We have plenty of church halls and venues that are willing to do this, and it would be remiss of me not to mention again the Adagio School of Dance, because they're always up for a performance, micro or otherwise.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby, for an update on all the things cultural going on in Hutton. You didn't bring leaflets, and Councillor Sankey brought leaflets, so I'd say he wins there. Councillor Sankey.
Hard act to follow, but I will. I will support this recommendation. I do particularly like the report, actually, because it identifies not just music, which a lot of people are talking about, but visual arts, performance theatre, dance, literature, heritage museum, etc. Also talks up about diversity and inclusion as well as young people. And as importantly, cultural tourism, attracting people to our borough. So I will support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sankey. Councillor Mayo.
Thank you, Chair. Stephen Moyer actually went from St Martin's and of course was often seen at Brentwood Theatre as well, of course, one of our most established and valued artistic venues, 40 years in and still going strong. Just a little bit of background, because I take Councillor Barber's point in terms of clarity about who actually did the report. So there's a little summary here in 1.3 about the basic information about the No Collective. But the No Collective have actually been working in Brentwood for 2 or 3 years now. They ran the Creative Cove initiative that we reported on this council last year in the Bay Tree, which was aimed at encouraging young people who were setting out on the creative industries, which built up over the summer. It started quite quietly, but it did build up. So they did well there. And very notably, they ran a scheme out of Brentwood Theatre again, which was building on the network that had been formed of all the artists that had taken place in the Brentwood Art Trail. And then they expanded that to include other arts. So their footprint is quite considerable within Brentwood already. So they were able to use that and the connections they had to inform this strategy. So I hope that does help a little bit more to give a bit more background.
Thank you, Councillor Mayo. We've had a whistle-stop tour of all the cultural events that are happening in Brentwood. To plug Brentwood South, obviously we're in the biggest theatre of them all in the borough right now. So, right. So if I don't have any further speakers on this, I'll move the recommendation. That is that a Place for Culture 2025 to 2030, a strategy for culture and creativity in the borough of Brentwood, as set out in Appendix A, and the 3 strategic priorities are set out therein, be approved. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, I'm very pleased to be able to second this, yes.
Okay, all those in favour? That's unanimous, thank you very much. So we move to item 9, which is the housing debt write-off, which starts at page 55. In September 2023, the Housing, Health and Community Committee approved a former tenants' debt recovery policy to assist with the collection of all former tenants' debts. In line with this, the council are working with an external agency to collect former tenant debts. As part of this process, a number of accounts have been identified as requiring write-offs as the debts where all avenues of recovery have been exhausted. The debt is statute barred, so 6-year-old debt is rendered unrecoverable for legal action, or the debtor has passed away and there is no money in the estate to cover the debts. The report is seeking to approve the write-off of the unrecoverable debt. Mrs. Marsh, do you have anything to add to the report?
Thank you, Chair. Nothing to add, but happy to take some questions.
Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair, and just like to thank the officers for the transparency in this report. My only concern is with item 1.8, the insufficient funds, personal circumstances. That figure with the current cost of living has the potential to increase. So I would just like to some reassurance from the officers that for our residents who do have insufficient funds and difficult personal circumstances, that the support is in place before it goes to recovery of the debt and or eviction, please. Thank you.
Mrs. Marsh, did you want to take that one, or Ms. Stretch?
Thank you. So these are former tenant debts, so they won't be people that are heading for eviction. They've left our properties and moved on to pastures new. We are working towards introducing a tenancy sustainment strategy that will outline all the things that we're going to be doing to help these people going forward, and make sure that they've got all the support in place financially and otherwise, to make sure that we're checking that there's insufficient funds or personal circumstances are covered, and the ones that are put forward here and the 8 cases that you're currently referring to have had a wealth of support. We've double checked and we've cross-referenced and we've deemed that they're not going to be able to refund this, and it is in their best interest for us to write this debt off and give them that freedom back.
Okay, I don't have any further questions, so I'll move the recommendation R1, is that the committee approves the former tenant debt of £54,492.01, as set out in the report, is presented to the Finance and Resources Committee for approval. Do I have a seconder?
I will second the recommendation.
Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much. And again, unanimous. Thank you very much. So we'll move to item 10, which is the Housing Resident Engagement Plan 2025-26, which starts on page 59. The report proposes the new Residents Engagement Plan 2025-26, detailing the engagement events and activities for the coming year, supporting the Residents Engagement Strategy 2022 to 2027, detailing how the Council intends to engage with tenants and leaseholders. Mrs Marsh, do you have anything to add to the report?
Thank you, Chair. So obviously we're already in June. Part of this plan has come into action because we didn't want to lose 3 months of the year. So we've done a couple of smaller events, and we've got 2 that, provided you all agree with this tonight, we will be doing 2 estate days in the summer, and if you are a ward member, you will be invited to come along. It doesn't say that in the report, but obviously we welcome member involvement in them. So I'm happy to take any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Ms Marsh. Sorry, Councillor Kendall.
Thanks, Chair. Because I've been on the council a long time, I remember some of the different things we did on resident engagement, and I appreciate there were times when we had more officers and we had more money, resource, everything else, but there was a time obviously where we had a number of groups set up where we were servicing them, so to speak, in terms of turning up to their meetings, supporting them, etc. And you know, we had a chair, a treasurer, all the bits and pieces. I think with COVID, that probably knocked a lot of that on the head, and those groups, a lot of them disbanded and disappeared. But I know Ms Marsh knows about the situation in Brentwood West. We've got 1 or 2 that used to have those groups, and in a way are sort of keen to see what can be done. I'm conscious of the fact we have got the 2 community engagement days, and I welcome those, but obviously we've got a number of other places around the borough who obviously aren't going to have community engagement days, and what do we do about them? I'm also conscious of the fact we've got a number of properties where we've got tenants, but we've also got people who own the property as well. And I suppose what I'm asking is, I'm quite prepared to do this myself, I'd be keen for more of our tenants to actually get a copy of the housing bulletin. Now, if you're not online, and some people aren't online or haven't got the inclination, it's obviously tricky getting one. Now, I don't mind, because I discussed it with colleagues earlier, I don't mind going around delivering, as I've done before, leaflets, the housing bulletin to residents. So, for example, I go to St Francis Way, I don't know who's a council tenant and who isn't. So I could deliver the whole lot with a housing bulletin, but you might tell me, well, I shouldn't do that because it's only for our housing tenants. So I'm open to ideas, but we have done, obviously, leaflet drops in the past for things like art trails, etc., etc. Quite prepared to do that, Chair, because I just want to try and get more people involved in the process, yeah? Accepting the fact, as I say, we haven't got the resource to do the bells and whistles perhaps we've done in the past, but welcome officers' thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Ms Stretch, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think as the Housing Department know, we don't have a huge amount of resource, but we are always open to attending. So if specific tenants have requested meetings, I think we've shown in the past that we will always attend. We'll come out on walkabouts. We are trying to, over different years, change the areas that we're doing community days in. We're more than happy to, we can supply copies of the housing bulletin. I know this doesn't address the people that are not online, but we have also, we are launching, or have launched, but it's a soft launch at the moment, again with resources, a tenants Facebook page as well. Because obviously the council has got its existing page, but not all information that will be for tenants will be of interest to the rest of the residents, so we've got a bit more of a dedicated page. Like you, I think this is an area of focus for us, so we are trying different things. We are, when we're going out to our TSMs, actually looking at doing a bit more of a dedicated consultation with residents about actually how they do want to engage, because I think we've tried several things and sometimes they're just not working. We haven't had any. We've done in-person meetings and we've actually just not had anybody turn up to those. And so that's difficult. But as you can see, this is an area, and we welcome any feedback from people. We're open to those suggestions. I think with regards to the housing bulletin, if it ends up going to somebody that's not a tenant, we're a transparent service. We'll be putting more information on our web pages, but we're happy for a copy of those bulletins to go to anybody. Similarly, if anybody does want to sign up to the bulletin, we are looking to increase that level, and we will be putting those on the Facebook page as well.
Sorry, Councillor Kendall.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, so if I wanted some housing bulletins, I just put into you and say, could I have X number of copies? Yeah. Okay. Lovely. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Sankey.
Thank you, Chair. Generally, I welcome this because obviously it's a step forward. It may not be entirely where you want to get to, but it's one step at a time, so I welcome it and will support it. On specific, what we achieved in 24-25, I think 1, 2, 3, fourth bullet point, policy consultations. Consultations were held for grounds maintenance at Mountney Close play area. I know we've had back and forth on this, but what specifically did we come to a conclusion on that at all? I know it's specific, we'll take it later, but...
Ms Marsh?
Sorry, do you mean specifically for the Mountney Close one, or just how do we do them? So the Mountney Close, off the top of my head, they're all on the website, so you can access them from our housing consultations page. So even though they've closed, you can see what the consultation was. And we did write to local residents to say the outcome was that they didn't want the play area to be moved, and we would look with play and open spaces strategy at what we can do to improve the equipment going forward.
Councillor Pound.
Thank you. It's following on actually from what Councillor Kendall was just saying, that when we're sending out these bulletins, can we as councillors have a copy and know what's being said? I mean, we're often used as the conduit between the resident and the council, and so it's good for us to know as much as possible exactly what residents' concerns are and what you're telling them. So that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I think we can probably add all 39 councillors to the bulletin list. Is that possible?
All 39 councillors should be on the mailing list, so I'll double check what's happened there, but they are on the website for everybody to access also.
Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair. Like Councillor Pound, I'd like to echo Councillor Kendall's comments on the community days and obviously the delivery of the bulletin. So thank you for bringing those points up at committee. So I just have a few points. So with regards to what we did achieve in 24-25, going forward, I think it would be quite nice if we could provide a Christmas party as well as the fish and chip lunches. I just know how well the Campion School Christmas lunch is. Well, obviously the number from the borough can attend that through their churches, so if that could be considered. And then with what to come in 25, this resident engagement portal for repairs, introduction of an online repairs portal. Is this live? And if so, how do we monitor this and the performance? Will that be included in the KPIs, or will this be a separate item, because obviously it's a separate portal?
Thank you, Councillor Slade. So on the repairs portal, Ms Stretch or Ms Burton? Ms Stretch?
I was just going to add first about the Christmas lunch. So we did offer out a Christmas party last year, and unfortunately there was not a huge amount of take-up, but we are going to relook at what offering we can do for Christmas at our independent living sites. With regards to the repairs portal, I'm going to hand over to Carol for that one.
So Axis have been trialling a portal that they've got for other clients. We're just waiting for a demonstration. It was meant to be in April, May time, but it's been delayed. And originally we were of the understanding it had to link to our own housing management portal, but they've advised they've found a different solution. So I'll be able to give an update at the next committee meeting or before confirming when that's going live.
Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, firstly, thank you to the officers for all they do engaging with our residents, our housing tenants and leaseholders. Couple of things, if I may. The community days, I think, are particularly effective. The one that was done in Woodland Avenue, where Councillor Pound and myself were working around Tiptree and Tollesbury and Tendring, was a very useful occasion to engage with local residents who are coming in and out of their properties. I do think residents will come up to us in that kind of scenario and tell us stuff on the street in a way they won't come to a formal meeting, and I do encourage you to give as much advance notice of those community days to councillors from wherever they are in the borough, so they can come and support you and do something practical and grab a broom and help out. Also, the estates inspection, we did a pilot, I think it was the year before, in Hutton North, and we had a schedule that we were going to go round, and I see there's a reference to conducting 100% of estate inspections monthly. One of the advantages when we did that pilot in Hutton North was that we did that, officers and councillors alike, and we were being accosted by residents who were coming up and telling us what needed to be done in the area. There seems to be no visibility on that plan at the moment because it hasn't been updated for a good 12, 18 months. I'm waiting to be corrected by Councillor Kendall. He probably remembers the exact date when it was last published better than I do, but it's been a while now, and I do think that they had enormous value, and whether they're in Pilgrim's Hatch, Whalley or Hutton, we should have that schedule very visible to this committee, so ward members can attend those sessions and get those in the diary and walk around with officers and taking on board the feedback from local residents. But thank you for what you're doing, appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Barber. If we've got no further speakers, I'll move to the recommendation, which is the committee approves the Resident Engagement Plan 2025 as detailed in this report and included in Appendix A. Do I have a seconder?
Very happy to second.
Thank you. So all those in favour, by show of hands. Thank you very much. Again, unanimous. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to item 11, which is the service charge tenant consultation, which is on page 65. Despite recent assurances from the government over the 10-year rent settlement, the housing revenue account still faces long-term financial pressure. Service charges to tenants are still significantly subsidised due to the CPI +1 per annum cap on the increase of all service charges detailed within the existing rent setting policy. Subsidising on service charge coupled with subsidising rents means there's less money to invest in the quality of the stock and services provided by tenants. As such, this report proposes a consultation with council tenants regarding service charges and a proposed change in council policy to remove to actual service charges. Ms Marsh or Ms Stretch, do you have anything to add to the report?
Nothing further to add, but happy to take any questions.
Okay, I don't have any. Sorry, Councillor Barber.
I'm just taking it in. Couple of things. Because we're talking, I'm not sure why we need a recommendation to do a consultation with residents, because one of the problems I've got with this is you're talking about moving towards actual costs. Could someone please just tell me what level the actual costs are running at and what kind of comparison we're talking about? Because there's an awful lot of people in social housing at the moment who would struggle just to pay any more than we're already asking them to pay. And without knowing what we're kind of opening the door to, I'm not sure why we're voting for a recommendation with an unquantified cost. And apologies if I haven't read it quickly enough, but I'm just not sure what I'm voting for. And without knowing the level of potential increase to council tenants, I'm not sure I can vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. Obviously, it's a consultation at the moment and full proposals will be brought forward. But as you can see on the report, an average of £300,000 per annum in income to the housing revenue account is being lost because we're not charging actuals on that, and that money is being spread around all council tenants. So at the moment, they're effectively already paying it. It's just not being appropriated to the right place, in my opinion. Ms Stretch, do you have anything to add?
No, that's correct. So we're under collection. So we are having to subsidise from effectively the rent collection the 300,000 that is under recovered by service charges due to the cap. So the actual cost that we're paying out is £300,000 per year at the moment, more than we are collecting in on our service charge collection.
Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair. Just following on from Councillor Barber's comments and just hoping that I've understood the report correctly. When I read point 1.4, can I just confirm that the consultation is addressing whether we charge a flat rate or whether we charge the actual cost, so the full recovery of the service or the usage of the utility? So can I just clarify that, and hopefully that brings some clarity to Councillor Barber?
I believe that's correct. Obviously, the flat rate has been only rising by CPI plus 1, way below, obviously, the costs. But Ms Stretch, did you have anything to add?
No, just that's correct.
Councillor Sankey.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I suppose it's quite emotive in moving to actual costs, but the reality is 300,000 a year is an awful lot of money. We have to try and mitigate that to a certain extent. But we're interested to know 1.7. As with previous consultations, a question will be included about staggered charges to minimise the impact of the additional costs. What will that actually entail? What does that mean?
Thank you, Councillor Sankey. I mean, you may remember from the ground maintenance charge, we went out to consultation and the reply was to bring in only 50% in the first year and then subsequent bringing the full charge in a future year. I think something similar potentially will be suggested in this consultation. Ms Stretch, did you have anything to add?
Yes, so obviously following the grounds maintenance consultation, and this is kind of why we go out to consultation, is to get some of this feedback. We recognise obviously the challenges in rising costs for anybody, but as we said, those costs are currently being, we have to cover those, and they do come from the rent. What it means is that there is less available to do. We obviously, as Ms Marsh spoke about earlier, we are bringing in a tenancy sustainment strategy as well. But one of the things is, especially in utilities, if they're high at the point, if we go from the CPI plus 1 cap to the actuals, that is quite an increase over 1 year. So we may look to bring those staggered costs up so that we do get to actuals, but that may take us a couple of years to do, so that there's not such a shock to tenants within that first year. So we will look to consult on that as well.
Thanks. Councillor Kendall.
Thanks, Chair. Just want to clarify something. 1.3 says we've got this cost of circa 300,000 per annum. Yep. On 1.9, it talks about caretaking charges. Does that 300,000 include the caretaking charges, or not include the caretaking charges?
So I don't think it does include the caretaking prices, it says in 1.9, but I'd seek clarity on that.
We don't want to give you incorrect information, so we will double check that and come back to you. But I believe that actually may have some of the caretaking charge in it. Now, the caretaking charge is not as under recovered as the other bits, so a lot of the gap is actually relating to the other service. The reason that the caretaking service is not included in this initial tranche is a bit like with the grounds maintenance. We feel that is a service that needs to be reviewed a bit wider, so with the actual service that we're offering, etc., before we talk about any costs associated to that, and that is something that we want to do a wider consultation on, about what residents actually want from their caretaking service.
Thanks for the answer on that. I suppose the other thing I was going to ask is, when residents are paying their rent, if we are going out to consultation, when residents are paying their rent, it's just having some clarity around what they get for free. I know nothing in life's for free, but what you get for free for paying your rent. And then there's all the other stuff. Do you know what I mean? So just so we've got it really clear when you go to consultation, you get this anyway, but if you want these other bits and pieces, there's a charge. At the moment, we've got a 300,000 shortfall. we've got to do something about it. Do you understand what I'm saying? It just sort of makes it a little bit simpler to understand the process. Because if I was a tenant, I'd be saying, well, hang on, I'm paying my rent. What's this come up? Yep, thank you.
Councillor Baldock.
Just to clarify, so it seems to me more fair to do it this way because, as it stands, you might have a group of residents in a block in a ward that look after that block and don't fly tip and leave their sofas outside the bins that have got to be collected by, it costs more to be collected or vandalised. Whereas you might get another block where they are costing more to run, and the residents of the one that are looking after it are through their rent are cross-subsidising those that aren't. And indeed, potentially, there's a lot of private landlords that have got places in there, and the value of those places should be reflected in what it's costing to maintain it, rather than the ones that are looking after it. They shouldn't be subsidising. Is that pretty much the gist of it?
Thank you, Councillor. I think you have got the gist of it perfectly correct there. For example, if you have a place with radiators in the hallways, one group might have them full on all the time, and another group would be more efficient and turn them off when it's not needed. One group may be subsidising the other. But yes. Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Chair. How are you going to circulate this draft questionnaire? Will it be in hard copy? Will it be available on social media? Will it be hosted on the Council's website? What are the means by which the questionnaire and its associated explanation will be communicated to those in addition to the tenant talkback, or will it just be through tenant talkback? Thank you.
Ms Masters, do you want to go through the methods?
So, as with the grounds maintenance, we'll be hosting it on our Engage With Us platform, which is on our website. All residents will be written to if they've not got an email address attached to their account. If they have an email address, we will email them the details. We'll be advertising it on our Facebook page with the link so that anybody can apply for that. They can phone up and request a paper copy, and we will send that out to them. Our independent living schemes, the officers will go around with the online form. If they're not able to fill it in on their tablets, they will fill it in for them. So we're not shutting down any method of communicating with residents. All communication methods are on the table. Even if they want to phone up the contact centre and the contact centre take that consultation, we will do everything we can to get as many people as possible feeding back.
Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me speak again. It's just really to follow through with Councillor Baldock's comments, which, as you acknowledge, are very fair points to make. I'd just like to add that possibly either with the consultation, or if this could be done as an additional exercise, possibly an education programme. So, for instance, if we've got one block producing more waste than another, again, that could improve our recycling rates. So it's just, and as you've said, if you've got one block using more utilities than the other, it's just how we educate our residents going forward if we consider an education programme. And then obviously I know the consultations are waiting recommendation this evening, but do we have the dates for the proposed consultation yet?
Thank you, Councillor Slade. All good points. On the dates question, do we know when we're going to roll out this consultation? March?
We'll be looking to do it late summer into early autumn.
Councillor Barber.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's just a very quick question. Obviously when you go to tenants, you're going to come up with numbers that apply to them and their circumstances and illustrate it in a way that's meaningful to them. Are you able to tell us broadly what you would have how the tenants would have been impacted if this had been implemented for this year for the average tenant? What order of magnitude are we talking about in terms of difference?
One of the officers want to answer that question.
We'll have to come back to you on the specifics, and we can do that. Essentially, because we'll be going to actuals, it will be within their block, so it does vary substantially. But obviously, you could do vague maths and distribute the 300,000 equally between the likely tenants affected. But the difference with actuals is exactly as we were saying. If you are a block that is using additional bins or additional collections versus those that are not, your increase is going to be higher. So I haven't got the figures for me off the top of my head tonight, but we happily can come back and say that we can look at, we obviously do have utility bills because we're paying the subsidy charge, so we can come back to you with some information about the likely effect on maybe the largest increase and the smallest increase.
Councillor Barlow.
Thank you for that. I'd appreciate that, and if it was shared with everyone on the committee, I think that'd be wonderful. I accept what Councillor Baldock says in terms of fairness by block, but I guess if you've got a block that's got 24 households in it, and you have 1 or 2 of 24 who are doing all the fly tipping, if I was one of the other 22, I think I might feel a little bit aggrieved. And at the moment, the current system averages it out across the borough. So, but if you're in a small block and you're going to see a very high charge for removal of fly tipping and stuff on that block, I think it might lead to some potential unfairness. I think, given that we don't have some assurances around the level on the individual, I'm going to have to abstain on this item personally. Because for me, I think we could end. I understand you need to balance the HRA, totally get that. But the unintended consequences, I think, for some people who happen to live in the wrong block, I think could be quite significant financially. So I will abstain personally.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. Obviously, we're not actually deciding anything tonight. We're literally only going out to consultation, so we can provide a lot more information when and if we decide to make any changes, alongside in respect to the results of the consultation. Ms Marsh, did you have anything to add?
Thank you, Chair. Just for the purposes of clarity, we don't recharge for fly tipping, so that is not included within the scope of this consultation. Fly tipping is not recharged across the block, so there will be nobody at detriment if they've got somebody who's persistently fly tipping, but if we are made aware of a case and it's a specific resident, they will be fined.
Just to say, at the moment, obviously, the 300,000 is spread out through the whole HRA, included houses that have nothing to do with the blocks that are being subsidised. Councillor Sankey.
It's continuing the theme, to be honest. It may being the operative word, that those blocks that aren't as efficient as the others may improve because of increased service charges. But I say, may is the operative word.
Thank you, Councillor Sankey, and that brings in Councillor Slade's point about education to enable them to change behaviours to lower their charge in future years. Okay, thank you very much. I think we've got everyone there. So I will move the recommendation that the committee approves a consultation exercise with all current tenants on the removal of the CPI plus 1% annual cap on service charges increases and move towards the implementation of actual charges for individual service charges. Do I have a seconder?
I will second the recommendation.
Thank you. All those in favour? Okay, thank you very much. That is unanimous. So we'll move to item 12, which is housing performance, which starts on page 71. During the recent inspection by the Regulator for Social Housing, it was noted that the performance reporting on repairs and compliance was very comprehensive. However, it felt there was a good level of internal departmental scrutiny on other landlord functions. We do not reach a similar level of detail in terms of reporting to this committee and residents of other areas. This coincided with the decision to report the relevant KPIs to the individual service committees rather than centrally to the Scrutiny and Performance Committee. The appendix in this report is the 2024-25 Q4 performance report, which gives an overview of the performance of the housing, service and landlord functions during this time and sets out our approach to performance reporting going forwards. Ms Stretch, do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Sankey?
Are we that? Yeah, okay. It's just a peculiar figure on page 79, repairs, and outstanding repairs full year is 8,868, which I think is an aggregate number rather than it's slightly misleading because that looks horrendous.
Yes, thank you, Councillor, thank you. And you did point it out to me just before the committee, and I haven't actually tried to point it to officers. But yes, you're talking about on page 79, where it has outstanding repairs at the full year. I believe accidentally they've just added all the months' outstanding repairs together, when it obviously some of those roll over and some of those go to completed. It hasn't, the number of the full year doesn't add up to the number that has actually been raised. So I think that number's slightly incorrect. But I'll check that with officers, is that correct?
It is, and we will give better clarity on that report for next time this came round. Obviously, for us, this is the first time of producing this format, and as we're putting in lots of figures, sometimes they make sense, but we will clarity look at that for next time, but it's an aggregated figure rather than outstanding at the end of the year.
So the outstanding amount at the end of March is 806.
Yes, and that doesn't mean that they're overdue, it's just the ones that were open at the time.
Councillor Slade?
Thank you, Chair. I'd actually like to thank the officers, because considering this is the actual first report where this is the council performance, as a landlord, it's very comprehensive, it's easy to read, easy to follow. So I'd obviously like to thank the the officers for all the work that's gone into this report. If I just may, do have a couple of questions. On page 79 actually of the report, where we have counselled, can that just be expanded as to what a counselled repair actually, the criteria for a counselled repair, please? And I had, and actually on page 83, where we have TP09 satisfaction with the landlord approach for handling complaints, that's currently at sort of 24-25%. Are we looking to improve that figure? And finally, if I just may take this opportunity to thank Miss Burton, because over the last couple of weeks, Miss Burton's put in an exceptional amount of work with a tenant who suffered a flood. So if you don't mind, I'd actually like to take this opportunity to thank Miss Burton for all her time and effort with the resident, please. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Slade, and thank you for that. Ms. Burton, did you want to answer the question on repairs? What constitutes a repair? I think that was the question.
Yeah, for the council, and obviously Mr Houlihan is online if we do know to explain, so apologies. So cancelled is whether a tenant cancels it or whether Access cancel the job. Some jobs had a change through, and Mr Houlihan will come in and correct me if I'm wrong. We had a change in call centre staff, as you expect. People move on and grow into new roles, so there are sort of duplicated jobs as well that fall in that category. But we are working, following a request from the last committee meeting, for the next report to break that down even further for cancelled jobs. And Mr Houlihan's there if he wants to add any more.
Yeah, it was just to say that thank you for letting us join online, and yeah, cancels can also be tenants cancellation. So if they've raised an emergency, for instance, and then they're not going to be in for that period, we do get cancellations of that nature. Or even tenants that are going on holiday, they'll cancel they'll cancel that repair and then ring up at a future date. We put in a cancellation request which goes over to the council with the kind of information, so we can look to provide more information for the next report.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr Houlihan, and for patiently waiting for the whole committee to this point. On your question on TP09, does Mr Stretch, although I'm pleased to see the number has gone up, a tiny amount, but yeah. Ms Stretch?
Yeah, so I mean, we can all say that that's not good enough, and that's simply where it is. We have done a huge amount of work in relation to complaints handling, actually, across the housing department. Bizarrely, it kind of goes hand in hand with the fact that when we present our complaints numbers, the number of complaints received in housing have gone up. And part of the reason for the dissatisfaction, so we actually did analyse this quite a lot so we get, although these are the TSM measures, from when people are called to do that, we get a lot of raw data. So we did actually look at this in a lot of detail, and we mapped it against actual official complaints. And what we found was that there was a lot of people who were saying that they're dissatisfied with our approach to handling the complaint, but when we looked on the system, they didn't have a formal registered complaint. So they were dealt with via other methods. Sometimes people were expressing their dissatisfaction to us, maybe via email, but we hadn't recorded it. One of the things that we are doing is we are now logging more of those as an official complaint, because that way we can guarantee people do get their appeals, that their right to appeal, etc., and that they are recorded and dealt with through that formal process. We are ever hopeful that in this year we will see another increase, but it is a learning process. I've had the luck actually to have the customer service team under me for 9 months, and I've been working with Mrs. Meek on this, and we are doing as well a lot more learning sessions around complaints. So rather than just the number, did we respond on time, how many were upheld, actually there is going to be a lot more reports and details that come through both internally and obviously for scrutiny around kind of the themes of those, and actually not just what the themes were, but what we're going to do to stop those things happening in the future. So they are perception measures. We do take them seriously though, because if people are that unsatisfied, we need to, but there is a lot of work going on this to hopefully improve that, but it does take time to change that in people's minds.
Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few points on antisocial behaviour and community safety. Obviously, there are a raft of policies coming forward, including on CCTV, domestic abuse and ASB in September and December. So I can foresee that I will be, if not a regular substitute, then a regular visitor to this committee, which is of course always welcome. I'm pleased to see that the number of ASB cases closed was very close to those recorded, with only 2 left open. That's good, and obviously we are recruiting and have recruited extra resource in here. In terms of satisfaction with the way in which we as a landlord work, I note in page 83, satisfaction with the landlord's approach to handling antisocial behaviour. At the bottom, overall it was 54.3% from 50.3%, which is a good thing. Ideally, in an ideal world, there would be no antisocial behaviour cases reported, and they wouldn't need to resolve them. The fact that we are resolving them is a good thing. The fact that satisfaction up is a good thing. It is an ongoing process, and we will continue to work at it. But I think that is a small positive, so I'll take the win.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby, and it is noted this year in the terms of reference that community safety and antisocial behaviour is under this committee now. I think that linked up with the housing performance very well and areas of improvement. Councillor Slade. Oh, sorry. Councillor Slade, I'll go for you first.
Sorry, Chair, just to add one more point, just to say, I know this is a point that both myself and Councillor Mayo have previously raised, which is TP05, satisfaction of home is safe, just to say that I am pleased to see that it's quite a significant increase. So just to say thank you for the work that's been undertaken there.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sankey.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm picking up on page 80, work in progress, and quote, volume of open cases continue to increase in this period. This is due to limited capacity within the scheduling team at Axis. Recovery plan has been put in place. And notice later on it shows how many people are being recruited, etc. My question is, I had an incident with one of my residents who some electrical work was done, and the operative left the property in a mess, hadn't cleared up properly. So, cut a long story short, reported it, etc., etc. And as I understand it, that operative no longer is with the organisation. So my question is, what sort of training is undertaken for new employees?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sankey. I don't know if Mr. Houlihan wants to answer that one on the Axis front.
Yeah, no, that'd be so. In terms of operative induction, they have a 2-week shadowing period. So we have a week's training period and a 2-week shadowing period. One of our biggest and continuous kind of behavioural monitors is we do work in progress inspections, we do post inspections, and we do desktop inspections, but there will always be incidences where an individual has a bad day, and unfortunately that does affect the resident. We do try and capture those to limit inconveniences and manage them. We have the text message service, so if a tenant replies no, and we can then look into, you know, why there's been dissatisfaction. But generally within that monitoring period, the physical monitoring period, we don't see, you know, any initial everyone's on their best behaviour, and where we do find and where we do capture our kind of most feedback, our honest, our raw feedback is unplanned work in progress inspections. So we do our supervisors and the three supervisors on the area will randomly turn up to inspect the operatives, how they're conducting themselves, so their sheets out, you know, is care being taken in the property. That's where we tend to find 9 out of 10 breaches. So we do increase it, certainly with new staff. We will undertake more visits for new staff, and then we randomly check all existing staff as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the officers for the report, which is very encouraging. Couple of things, if I may. Good to see that the appointments kept is improving on a month-on-month. It would be useful on those statistics on that table if you could have the previous year, so, because obviously it's very difficult for councillors to know whether there are monthly seasonal adjustments in appointments being kept, and whether that just is when you happen to choose in the calendar year and it's just random, or whether it's a general trend. So that would be useful. On your tenant satisfaction measures, 11 out of 12 of them have improved, so that's excellent. I would just flag the only one that's gone down is the satisfaction on the communal areas, and caretaking is something that certainly myself and Councillor Panda Patel have escalated to us by residents on a frequent occasion, and we do think there is more work that needs to be done there to keep those areas clean and tidy. And the final question is on the estate management. You talk about the monthly inspections which take place on the various estate blocks. It would be useful if, even if it was not available publicly, but councillors had access to when the blocks on their ward have been inspected the most recently, and what the outcomes were for those inspections. Just very high level, not trying to create any work, anything that exists today that could be shared with at ward level to councillors, I think would be welcome, I would hope, cross-party. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. I'm sure the officers will look into that and see what we can do in that. Okay, so I don't have any further speakers, so I'll move the recommendation. This is almost for information, but I will read out the recommendation and we'll have a vote on it, which is the committee considers the performance set out in Appendix 1 and notes the report. Do I have a seconder?
I will second that.
Okay, all those in favour? Thank you, and that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item 13, which is the report sets out the proposals to co-opt representatives of tenants talkback onto the Housing, Health and Community Committee for housing related items in accordance with the Council's constitution. I believe we do this every year. So, Mr. Marsh, do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add, Chair. We do actually have apologies from the tenant talkback tonight. They've been unable to make it, but this is a report that we bring annually, so I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Slade?
Actually, it's just to follow through on that point. If either or one cannot, or either or both cannot make the meetings, are they able to provide a sub?
Absolutely, so any member of tenant talkback can come. Some don't necessarily feel comfortable in this setting, but any member of tenant talkback could be one of them two members.
Councillor Baldock?
I think it's a great idea, but the tenant talkback group, roughly how many show up for that? Because we're saying there's 2 of those people will be nominated. For all I know, only 2 ever show up. I'm not saying that would be the case, I'm exaggerating obviously, but also how will they decide which 2? They're going to start fighting.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. I think it's fluctuated over the years, but I'll ask Ms. March for the latest numbers of people attending.
Thank you, Chair. So we have between 7 and 9 members that come across the estates panel, the repairs panel, and then the overarching tenant talkback panel. Generally, it would be the chair and the vice chair of the tenant talkback panel that attend, but we have had other people attending their place before, so they don't have a bum fight over it. It's accepted that the chair and the vice chair would be the first two, and then as you guys do, they would substitute out.
No? Oh, sorry. Councillor Pound.
Can I just ask, how do you meet with them? Do you meet them here? Do you meet them in a sort of a hall or somewhere? How do you engage with them?
Thank
you, Councillor Pound. Ms Marsh, I think it is here. But
yeah, so we meet them here. Each panel, we try to have one panel a month because sometimes the same members double up, and then talkbacks every 6 months. But they're all held in Committee Room 1 here.
I don't have any more questions. I'll move to the recommendation, or I'll move the recommendation, which is the tenant talkback nominate up to 2 representatives to be co-opted onto the Housing, Health and Community Committee without voting rights, and to be invited to attend meetings where public housing items are to be discussed. Do I have a seconder?
Very happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Okay, again, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. And I'll move to the last item, item 14, which is urgent business. There are no items of urgent business. The meeting is now closed. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.